Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Sazo, and I'm here reviewing a conversation that was had on the Lapeef network. Seen some things, and just want to give my input, my opinion. Um, if you like this video, like, share, subscribe, and we can get into it. Let's go.
These Africans are hilarious, and sometimes I speak, people think I'm anti-African. I'm pro-African, but I think they're funny when they're like, the Black American, it's the no cultural value of the people, they twerk the girl. And it's like, nah, bro, I've been to more African countries than any African has, and they do the same dances. They try to dress like black men and black women, except they look dirtier. Their wig game is terrible. I mean, utterly terrible. And they're doing all the things we do on dirt roads.
If you've been to all the African countries, you can tell me that all of them have the same dress, do the same dances, and they all look the same in the whole continent of Africa. Sounds crazy already, but let's go.
So the fact of the matter is you're dealing with a case of jealousy. And I say this with all love for the African peoples. I'll be in Africa shortly. But the fact of the matter is they come to the United States, as do many immigrants, and the dominant culture here is the white culture. And they try their best to step on our heads to appear palatable to the white dominant infrastructure.
So African Americans would say, well, you're not one.
That's kind of crazy, but okay, let's go.
Yes, I know, but I'm walking past my cousin, my nieces every day.
I think what, most foreigners come here is to achieve something, not necessarily to step on people's heads, but preach, bro.
So what is in my head is what is in their head. And what I'm explaining is something that they must listen to. When I say there is no such thing as African-American culture, they're like, what do you mean? But culture for me is not dance, food, clothing. Those are not cultures. Culture is a worldview. The worldview is what drives people. Their relationship to wealth, to money, to community, to marriage, to family. It's the worldview they have. That's the foundation of a culture. And number two, there is no possibility for you.
What drives you to accomplish those things? That's determined to be culture. Okay, that's very important in a worldview. All right.
To have a culture without having a language. So if you read most of the books written by brilliant African Americans, the first thing you see, the headline is, the traumatic thing about slavery is not merely changing your environment. The traumatic thing about slavery is not merely asking you to work long hours. The Russians had hard labor camps in Siberia. Many countries, Japanese had it, where people work and they die. The traumatic thing about slavery is one thing only, which everyone has written about. They took our language away.
Okay. All right. I mean, as Americans, we do speak the King's English or the Queen's English, not necessarily our tongue as Black people from sub-Saharan Africa. Unless you're not from there, then, I guess you speak the language you speak.
They took our culture away. They took our history and religion away.
Yeah, after slavery, I'm sure. Remember, I guess Kunta Kinte will be one example. I know it's a fictional tale of slavery, but when they were breaking Kunta Kinte, when he was beating them and trying to change his name, that was a part of it. You had to break slaves. And you have to remove those things to completely enslave them.
That is a traumatic thing about being a slave. Now, if they took those things away, how and when were they recovered?
Very, 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 very important topic. How and when were they recovered? Did we ever get our names back? Did we ever, get our culture back?
So I met a gentleman. I was attending a conference in Singapore, and I met this gentleman who was a Korean sociologist. So we started talking during coffee, and I said, I lived in Korea for 2 years when I was reporting. And he said, oh, wow. And then we started talking. I I don't remember how the conversation came about when he asked me. He said, so your country was colonized? I said, yes, and my country, his country, Korea, was colonized by the Japanese for 49 years. And he said, what did you guys, meaning referring to people in Benin, what did you lose as a result of colonization? And I froze and I said, whoa, nobody has ever asked me that question. So I said, Prof, you tell me, and that will give me some idea. And he said, no, we're Koreans, were colonized by the Japanese. So when they left, all we lost was time. We just went back being Koreans.
That's prolific right there. That's prolific, because all they lost was time compared to losing who you are, your culture, your traditions, your customs, your names, your language, your traditions, things like your religion, how you achieve things such as success, marriage, families, all of those things were removed.
And from that day, I could tell clearly, what did we lose as a result of colonization in Africa? What did you lose as a result of slavery? If you don't fix that which you lost, you're not going to make any way forward. So in Africa, the countries that exist today were never there. They force a group of tribes that have their own distinct cultures to become a country. So they've lost their distinct cultures, trying to have a culture as a collective, which is never going to happen.
Okay, got it. So they lost the fact that they were tribes as individuals to become nations. Okay, as far as Africa goes. Makes sense.
What defines culture? What defines culture? And do we have a culture?
Well, I say this. I believe bro started off wrong off rip, because that's not the denotation of culture. He came up with what his opinion was of it and then tried to say that black people don't have culture. So that's the first ridiculous thing right on there.
I mean, it's kind of, based upon what he said, based upon the examples of what he said, meaning that after slavery, your culture was removed. And I've heard that a lot in time. I've heard that a lot from a lot of different people, that we lost our names, we lost our religions, we lost our history, we lost who we are, how our traditions. That's how I was informed things were.
And then, I'm trying to see the point of what he's really doing, because to me, at this point, I feel like we need to tighten up. And what he's doing is extremely divisive. But I'm gonna let y'all go.
I'm not sure how that is divisive compared to how is that divisive compared to it being inclusive? Because if you're black, right, you've gone through slavery, and you've lost your culture from where you came from. So I would think that the solution is to find what you lost. But first, you have to acknowledge that you lost something. And I think that's everybody can agree that that part of things have been lost.
I got some things on it, but I'm gonna let y'all rock into it. But I don't like how he started off.
It wasn't nothing personal.
Yeah. I'd say that, once again, I love when people want to create their own definitions for words that we have definitions for. The definition of culture, just for the crowd, is custom arts, social institutions, and achievements of a particular group, nation, people, or other social group. It doesn't require them to have a language. And even if we are to say that language is required for culture to be had or sustained, music is language, music is communication. And there's
I disagree with that. You're speaking in the King's English. So that is part of your culture. If you can't speak your cultural, tribal, original language and you embrace somebody else's language, is that your necessary language? Is that your culture? No. If we speak in English and we're originally from somewhere else, we're using somebody else's culture. I'm using somebody else's language. And music is music, regardless. Music can be translated in different languages. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's a culture, because what goes on here can go on in any other place. If you're not adding, to, I mean, if you're not, music is music. Music is not language. Music is not a language. Music is music. I would say. I think so.
A strong tie to music in Black American culture. So that would not prove that, you know, when you say like the ability to pass things down from generation to generation, Black Americans have been able to do that through music. So that is a form of language. In addition, there is.
I'm not even sure about that, because who owns the music? And do only Black people produce music or make music? No, it's not something that's specifically Black. I would say music even has no color.
AAVE that is also for a dialect in itself, that akin to a lot of Caribbean islands that have a form of dialect derived from English, Spanish, or French. So I think
exactly that. It's derived from your colonizers. So it's not yours. It's actually somebody else's.
I think it's very odd to randomly just point out Black Americans and say they don't have culture because they were stolen from their lands, when you wouldn't say that about Jamaicans, and I'm Jamaican. You wouldn't say that about Trinidadians. You wouldn't say that about.
You can actually say it if they were, and actually I was thinking that African American experience is unique, but they're actually just different stops on the boat. West Indians were enslaved as well. So they went through slavery too, and they were removed from their land. But I would say this about West Indies. A lot of West Indians are more culturally closer to where they're originally from, especially Jamaicans or the Rastaman, you know, like they're more in touch with the motherland.
Bajans. You wouldn't say that about anybody else from the diaspora, but for some reason you want to say that about Black Americans. One last point. He literally disproved everything he said with his last point, where he said in Africa there were separate tribes that they forced into countries.
Mhm.
So then you're inherently saying that Africans don't have cultures either, because
Not that they're not, no. He didn't say that they don't have culture. He's saying that they still have culture, but they were forced into nations instead of being divided into tribes, just like Africa was split up and colonized by making it into different countries, whereas Africa was tribes. That's the difference. They still have their tribal, their tribal culture, traditions, language, mainly language, and other traditions and customs, but they're now representing nations rather than their tribe. Like, to a certain extent, some people, probably next few generations, will be so far removed from their original tribes that they would become something else, which is inevitable.
they were forced to put something together that wasn't natural. So pretty much, I guess no Black people on the planet has a culture.
Nah, you're being ridiculous now. Sorry, I had to take a little break, but I'm back now.
JR, if you don't mind, I wanted Trev to good morning first and foremost. I wanted Trev to expound on the divisive aspect. I just wanted to hear a little bit more about what was divisive about what he said. To me, it's revealing, right? I think it's good information to see the thought process, because the pathology is very important to understand.
He's gonna they drag it a little bit too much for me right here on that one. Yeah, I want to get to this part because this part was kind of like, it was interesting to say the least.
Get over it. But this is what the local people are saying as well.
Go ahead, Saint.
With regard to the discussion about the Frank Zanu character, these Africans are hilarious. And sometimes I speak, people think I'm anti-African. I'm pro-African. But I think they're funny when they're like, the Black American, it's the no cultural value of the people, they twerk the girl. And it's like, nah, bro, I've been to more African countries than any African has.
That was a horrible imitation of an African accent. But on top of that, you've been to more African countries than any African has. That's interesting.
And they do the same dances. They try to dress like black men and black women, except they look dirtier. Their wig game is terrible. I mean, utterly terrible. And they're doing all the things we do on dirt roads. So the fact of the matter is,
sounds like you've probably been to the city parts. I would say the more urban areas compared to the interior of Africa, where more of the tribes live, and if you've been to the interior, I haven't been to Africa but one time, but I watch enough YouTube to see that Africa is very, very diverse continent. And there's different tribes, and all the tribes have different customs, traditions, dress, language. They're not all the same. It's even, I wouldn't even say America is all the same. So to say that you've been to more African countries than all Africans is ridiculous. That shit is wild.
dealing with a case of jealousy. And I say this with all.
And it always come back to the point that somebody feels like, oh, you're jealous, but it really shows your low self-esteem. You're always worrying about how a person feels about you rather than chasing achievement. That's what makes this kind of utterly ridiculous.
All love for the African peoples. I'll be in Africa shortly. But the fact of the matter is they come to the United States, as do many immigrants, and the dominant culture here is the white culture. And they try their best to step on our heads to appear palatable to the white dominant infrastructure. Now, here's the thing that's worth noting, and I agree with Pretty Intellectual about this fellow starts trying to redefine words, which is extraordinary. Is he a linguist or a cultural anthropologist? I don't know what his background is, except that he's a journalist who's worked for the white man. And
that's irrelevant. Like, he's a journalist that works for a white man. He's not a linguist. He's not a cultural anthropologist. But what is he saying that is wrong? What is he address the point by, giving me a point by point breakdown of defining what the culture is.
And so we know who's feeding.
Keep the insults to yourself. It's like, I got another video coming after this that really shows the characteristics of, a part of what they describe the culture to be. And he's really an example of that. This guy right here. He's really an example of that because he's showing all of those characteristics of a person who can't get to the point or can't articulate his point in what he's saying, but he can just toss around a whole bunch of insults. And it usually comes from, and it shows that usually goes in the direction of, okay, I'm going to toss around some insults because I want to get violent. Let's be honest.
He's not an entrepreneur. He's never been in control of his own life. And furthermore, he's so African and respects their culture so much that he lives in Texas and he dresses like a white man. So
You dress like a white man too. I mean, why so many insults? Address the point that I don't know. This is setting up the stage for what?
The thing that I often put forward to these Africans is like, look here, little buddy. If your culture is so strong, why'd you throw it away so quickly? The reason that he has to redefine culture away from the traditional markers, he mentioned language, for sure. Okay. But then what about folkways, mores, religion, garb, style of dress, holidays, all of these?
All of those things. I mean, think about it. Religion, style of dress. Look at the way you dress. What is your religion? I can probably pinpoint it to about 3, maybe 4. And all the other things you said, music, culture, regardless. Music, culture, style of dress, Africa has all of those things as well on an individual basis. And you speak the King's English. You can't forget that. You're speaking in the King's English. You're speaking in the tongue of your colonizer, your enslaver.
These things. Well, he had to throw that away because if you look at his appearance, he's dressed like a Western white man. So you'd have to ask him, well, in my case, as a foundational Black American, that was ripped from me. I never had a choice on that. Our culture started here as an ethnic group. You decided to.
Can't make yourself a victim. I mean, that still does not just the point. It's like you're taking personal attacks instead of just addressing the point and answering the question. What is the culture? Thomas Sowell does a great breakdown of it. I'll just let it know. I'll just let you know. Thomas Sowell does a great breakdown of the urban African American culture and how it's actually not African American culture. How it's not the culture of Black people.
To throw away your culture. You voluntarily threw it into the garbage can. So how strong could it be? Here's the most important thing that no one acknowledges. When a culture is so strong, so emulated, so good that it's commercialized, packaged, and sold around the whole world, it becomes invisible because it's dominant.
I don't understand that. Like, okay, what is it that's packaged, sold, and around the world? What is it about African? What is it? What's the product? You telling me about an invisible product now? Like, what is the product? Was not tangible. I can't put my hands on it. I can't explain it. Nothing. Doesn't make any sense.
You go to China. You mention any of the Michaels, Michael Jordan, Michael Jackson, Mike Tyson.
Exactly. Michael Jordan, Michael Jackson, Mike Tyson. Basketball, singing, and boxing. Those are all things that are universal, I would say, right? They participate in those sports activities and singing, but that doesn't make it Black. Doesn't. It's just Black people doing those things. Everybody doesn't play. All Black people don't play basketball. All Black people don't sing. All Black people don't box. What is a universal African American culture that all African American people participate in? The whole tribe.
They know who you're talking about. You go to Albania, you look like Tupac. They couldn't name anyone of meaning from Africa, the whole damn 54 countries. So my point is this: our culture is extraordinarily dominant. Our culture is well known, the good and the bad. There's a such thing as high culture and there's a such thing as low culture. High culture, maybe we talk about Ella Fitzgerald. Maybe we talk about Martin Delaney. Low culture, maybe we talk about Sexy Red. But the
Oh my God, this nigga said Sexy Red? Sexy Red is African American culture? Damn it.
level of domination is extraordinary. So he's a lying, dirty, filthy African who's a pseudo-intellectual, and he's destructive for Black people wherever you find them. He's a tool, a bootlicker of the white supremacists, and he doesn't even know it. And that's the sad part. I
yield my point. All of the name calling, but his reference is Sexy Red as African American culture. That's not African American culture. That is ratchet culture. That is not black people. Damn. That's crazy. That is motherfucking crazy. Oh my goodness gracious. That is crazy. This man is out of his mind. But yeah, I'm just leave it there, man. This video getting too long, so that's just crazy to me, man. Come with the next video. Yo, if you like, subscribe. If you feel I'm wrong, leave a comment. We could talk about it in the comment section. My name is Sazo. 1.